Ready? Cool. What is public housing?
You mean like how it works?
I don't know much about it.
Way to help get families on their feet.
Affordable housing is for people that are low income.
Those who are less fortunate.
Public housing, from what I understand, is housing that's subsidized by the government.
Stateway Gardens, Ida B. Wells, Dearborn Homes.
Traditionally, public housing would be considered government-owned and operated housing.
But we call them projects.
So I don't know a ton about it, but I assume that it's something that you apply for through the government.
Well, I'm only familiar with Section 8 housing. It's where people below certain income levels have the ability to get assistance based on their income.
I know people that drive Cadillacs and Mercedes and BMWs that have Section 8 vouchers.
You can apply for public housing based on what the bureaucracy decides. They give you an option, I would guess. I don't know.
There is affordable housing, which might have some element of government support, either through tax credits or some other funding source, but it is not strictly owned by the government. In fact, it's not owned by the government. It's typically owned by a private entity.
And what does public housing look like?
I mean, unfortunately, a lot of the public housing you see is a little bit run down.
Mostly impoverished. And so when we thought about people that lived in the projects, we thought about them being poor and, undereducated, underdeveloped, and things like that.
Yeah, not the most beautiful buildings.
It's not always right, but it's usually like mass compounds I've seen.
But my perception is it's a tall, multi-unit building.
High-rise after high-rise.
A whole bunch of little rooms.
In my opinion, it might be smaller than a regular apartment or house.
Like a big open space.
There are public housing projects, entire complexes.
Certain people together into concentrated areas.
It's like a sharing place, so it would be nice and big.
Public housing looks cheap, but it doesn't necessarily have to look like that.
Physically, I'm no expert in this, but it seems to me that we can do probably a better job architecturally and otherwise.
I guess now I kind of think of it as something that can be, look like the type of apartment complexes that I would live in.
It looks like regular houses and apartments because they just inspect them to meet HUD qualifications for clean, safe, and affordable housing.
I'm hoping that nowadays maybe that won't be the same, that you actually wouldn't notice public housing these days.
Do you think public housing is necessary?
Housing costs a lot of money and not everybody can afford that. So yes, I think it is necessary.
I know for a fact that you can't find an apartment in Chicago for less than $1,000 unless you go somewhere that's kind of dangerous and sketchy.
In a perfect world, it would not be necessary.
It seems as if some people have forgotten the importance of public housing.
In a prosperous society such as ours, there is a moral obligation to take care of those in need.
Because there's people that's living on the streets.
People fall in hard times.
It depends. Homelessness or public housing. What do you want?
To really be that transition, just be able to do things that maybe you and I take for granted, like take a shower, get ready for a job interview, home for your kids.
Thinking that only destitute people and only people that can't do any better have to live in public housing, and I gotta believe that has not always been the situation.
So as a society, it's important to provide for them in ways that help them succeed. Housing is such a fundamental way to do that I think it behooves neighborhoods and communities to have participating, happy, thriving members of society.
The first and most important thing for a person is to have a home, no matter what it is.